Ladies and gentlemen, just in case you're deaf, dumb, blind, stupid, or let's just assume poor, this is MJF, and you're listening to the Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
When they're not covering the sports world, they're talking about the world of professional wrestling.
It's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
Now, here's Stu Myrick.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the horn. Stu Myrick flying solo tonight. Justin Simmons has the night off as we get ready for AEW Double or Nothing. So since Justin's not here, I decided to go to the bullpen, and boy, I did pretty well, I think. Joining me on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline, he is with the Dallas Morning News, Reece Kelley Graham. Follow him on Twitter at Reece Kelley Graham. Reece, how's everything in Big D?
It's going well, man. It's getting hot. As you said before we got on the call, it turned into summer overnight after all that rain that we had. So it's hot, just like it should be. Yes,
it is mid-May, so of course it is now. It's already in the 90s, and it'll just get hotter until about October. So, how is everybody in your family? Everybody doing okay in this weird pandemic time?
Yes, everything's going great with my family, friends, coworkers. Everything's nice. I'm actually based out of Cleburne right now. I'm helping my dad out with some construction work that's going on a farm that he's building between Cleburne and Dallas. So we have like our own little compound out here in the rural area, and it's very nice having everybody kind of just within one general area. Helps keep everybody healthy and happy.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear everybody's doing okay. At least with, in the mediums that you and I work in, there's still stuff to talk about. There's still stuff to write about, especially when it comes to pro wrestling, and especially with this pay-per-view coming up on Saturday. AEW Double or Nothing. It is this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. You can catch it if you're in the United States on Bleacher Report Live. You can get it outside the U.S. from our friends at Fight TV. It will take place at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, right there next to TIA Bank Field, the home of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and new Jaguars wide receiver, lifetime Longhorn Colin Johnson. Let me ask you this: what is your take on the build to this pay-per-view?
Well, I don't think it's a secret to anyone that this pandemic came down the pipe at probably the worst possible time for the professional wrestling business. Not just the WWE, not just AEW, but also, the smaller indie promotions that really needed a nice gate on WrestleMania weekend and during this spring wrestling season. A lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of people have lost paychecks, and it's tremendously unfortunate. That being said, I feel that the companies that are still operating have done a good job and as tasteful a job as they could to put out new content during this very uncertain time for fans who really need cheering up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no matter what day of the week fans decide to tune in and watch some pro wrestling. So it is a difficult time. That being said, I think that the build to this pay-per-view, Double or Nothing especially, has been very good, especially here in the past 3 weeks, ever since the final episode that AEW taped at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, in Norcross, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. Everything from the semifinals of the the TNT Championship Tournament through the live show that they did 2 weeks ago and the taped show that they did last week. All of the build up for this pay-per-view has been exceptional. We're talking about 15, 16 days ago, AEW's biggest pay-per-view, it only had one match on the card, and now there's a bunch of matches for fans to get excited about. So yeah, it's been very good. And when comparatively speaking, when you look at the build up that WWE did through WrestleMania, of course, some of that was hampered by the pandemic. But even if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, it's an opinion of many fans that the build to this year's WrestleMania wasn't the strongest that it could have been. So the fact of the matter is that, pandemic aside, Double or Nothing, the build up to this next AEW pay-per-view probably would have blown WWE's build up to their biggest show out of the water anyway. And AEW Double or Nothing is the company's biggest pay-per-view. I know everybody wants to say that All Out is right there because of the All In connection, the Chicago connection, having that giant fan base. But, when you consider that, Double or Nothing takes place at the MGM Grand Garden, which is a very important arena for combat sports, and that it's a destination event. It's the company's one destination event that it's put on so far. And the number that it drew last year, 11,000 in Las Vegas, a city that traditionally hasn't done well as a draw for professional wrestling. It is their biggest show. And I think that considering the circumstances, I've been very impressed with the build that they've done, surrounded by the setup for the TNT Championship Finals that we will probably see in the main event. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but that's the match I would put on last.
Okay, interesting. Let me ask you this. There's been a lot of talk about whether AEW, WWE should even be doing shows right now. A lot of talk about they're putting the wrestlers at risk, putting staff at risk. What's your opinion on that?
Well, personally speaking, I think the professional wrestling business across the board probably should have taken a hiatus during this time. Just to be absolutely 100% sure that the safety and the health of the staff and wrestlers and everybody associated with television production, making sure that safety is paramount. But at the same time, we have to understand and take into account the nature of this industry, the nature of the beast, which is that it doesn't have an off season. And for some of these companies where their primary stream of revenue is the television deals that they've already signed, you can understand the importance of being able to produce a new television product. I think the real question, the real moral question here is how the different companies, and by different companies I mean WWE, AEW, and UFC, have gone about their business in taking care of their people during this crisis. All Elite Wrestling, they moved, they canceled their shows. They moved everything pretty much within house to both Daly's Place and the Nightmare Factory in Norcross. They've implemented COVID-19 testing. There's no known positives, reportedly speaking, from that group of tests. UFC in Jacksonville, just right around the corner from Daly's Place at the arena there, also conducted rigorous testing that produced 3 positives ahead of their UFC 249. WWE has done temperature screenings. They've done surveys to make sure that their talent and staff aren't exhibiting any symptoms. They haven't done unnecessary travel, but they haven't done any COVID-19 testing. They were still putting on shows and still conducting the build up to WrestleMania during the early stages of the pandemic, when we didn't really know where the trajectory of the graphs and the death rate and the new number of cases was going to go. And that's not to badmouth WWE or UFC or AEW or any of these companies that are still doing business. As the situation has evolved, everybody's doing their best to make good decisions based on the information that's available at the time. So I wouldn't have put on any events. I would have given my talent the time off to rest and recuperate. And I would have paid them if I'd have been able, if I was a booker, if I was a company owner, I would have paid everybody involved if I, depending on my financial situation. But yeah, I think everybody's doing their best. And I think overall it's a good thing that new content is being produced for these fan bases.
Totally understand. And I think I'm pretty much, feel the same way. It is a necessity because they have agreements, whether it's WWE with NBC Universal and Fox or AEW with TNT and Warner Media, and it does seem like AEW at least has gone to great lengths to make sure everybody is safe. All the testing's done, and you're right. I think it's something to at least have a little bit of comfort with. We're talking with Reece Kelley Graham from the Dallas Morning News. Again, follow him on Twitter at Reece Kelley G. So you mentioned the finals of the TNT Championship Tournament. Cody Rhodes taking on Lance Archer, and you mentioned that as probably seems like that's the match you're looking forward to the most. What about it? What about it that intrigues you the most?
I think the thing that intrigues me the most about the TNT Championship final is Lance Archer. I mean, Stu, as being here in Texas, we've watched the year that this guy has had, starting out last July in Dallas in the first round of the New Japan G1 Climax, where he got that huge win over Will Ospreay. He's been tearing it up on the independent scene this year. Had a great G1 showing in general. They eventually put the IWGP US Championship on him, which he carried through Wrestle Kingdom when he dropped it to Moxley in a really fun, I think they called it a Texas Death Match, Texas Street Fight, something like that. And then he gets signed with All Elite Wrestling. He gets paired with Jake the Snake Roberts as his manager. And, he's just been tearing it up, and he's been booked in AEW as the monster that he should have been booked in his previous stints with other American companies. And I think that's the most intriguing aspect about it, not just about the job in ring that Lance is doing right now, but also his journey, over the past 11 months. And now he's getting these opportunities in AEW that really he deserved all along. And if you look at how the tournament has been booked, the tournament has absolutely been booked, around him. Some people are going to say it's Cody, the guy that he's facing, but if you look, he gets the opportunity against Colt Cabana, a well-known personality in the wrestling industry, beats him, goes through, the semifinal against Dustin, goes through Cody's brother to add some heat to that final angle. And I humble brag here. I did participate in that bracket challenge that AEW put out on their website before the tournament started. And I did pick a perfect bracket, and I do have Lance winning in the final and Mike Tyson handing him the new belt, which we still don't know what it looks like. So, for that selfish fun reason, I would like to see Lance go over in the final, just because, considering of how the tournament has been booked, it's really the only outcome that makes sense. He's looked that dominant, he's that talented, and I think his followers know, or his biggest fans know how much that the Texas native deserves it.
I tend to agree with you. I've known Lance for several years. I've worked with him. I've called matches with him on the independent scene, and to see how much he works, and he is so committed to his craft, and
absolutely,
and just watching him, this is and now to finally get this big shot in AEW, and as you said, had a hell of a year last year in New Japan, between the G1 and winning the U.S. title, and now this pairing, and I got to be honest, it's so funny because I've had Lance on my show, I've had Jake on my show. It was a pairing that it never even dawned on me, and now I can't see any better pairing than Lance Archer and Jake the Snake Roberts, one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's been a great pairing. I've been really impressed with Jake's promo work since he's been a part of the AEW programming. Kind of the talking head for Lance's in-ring work. It's been really a really creative decision, a really unique pairing, but also a pairing that makes sense. One other thing that I'd like to mention regarding Lance and the TNT Championship, if he wins it, of course, is I think that AEW has been very smart in the sense that Tony Khan, he's not booking the TNT Championship as a mid-card title. If you look at the AEW rankings that they put out, which of course serves the needs of their product, they're not letting the records dictate how they're going to book. The rankings are fully at the service of their plans, but what they're going to do is they're going to have the AEW World Heavyweight Champion and the TNT Champion kind of on the same level, kind of on the same plateau. And I think that's really smart because it's kind of a throwback to what you saw in the territory days. And, in the early NWA, they had so many singles championships that they kind of held on the same level of prestige. And there really wasn't a mid-card infrastructure. It means that everybody is going to be fighting for those top spots. It means that everybody is going to have a logical journey to the top when they get there. And the TNT Championship, it's not going to be like, some meddling belt in the middle of the card that's not going to have the gravitas, that's not going to have the value that a title with the name of the network on it should have. It's going to be valued right up there with, the quote unquote top championship in this promotion. And I think that's really special. And I think that's very indicative of how AEW and how Tony Khan views Lance Archer as an in-ring worker in pro wrestling today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We know Tony Khan is a huge fan of the Jim Crockett days in Mid-South. And as you mentioned, back in the Jim Crockett days, they had, whether it was the Mid-Atlantic title, the Florida title, the TV title, the Western States Heritage title, the national title, of course. They had all those titles that, like you said, kind of were basically all on the same level, just different people that they could plug in. So I get you there. Let's talk about the world title match. Jon Moxley defending against Brody Lee, the Exalted One, the leader of the Dark Order. Is it crazy to say that this feels like they've pulled the trigger on this one a little too soon?
Well, I think it's all going to depend on what Brody Lee makes of the Dark Order. The Dark Order, at least from my understanding, the reporting that I've read, that Brody Lee is very much the creative head of where the Dark Order goes, after Double or Nothing and throughout the rest of the programming. He is kind of the creative head of, what they want to do and where they want to go. They've given him a lot of leeway in terms of what he wants to say in his promos and what he wants the overall vision to be. I would not expect Brody to go over Mox at AEW Double or Nothing. I wouldn't expect many, if any, of the titles to change at AEW Double or Nothing. It doesn't make sense in my mind to have your championships change hands when there's no fans in the stands to enjoy it. So I think if they've pulled the trigger early, they've only pulled the trigger early out of necessity, kind of like what they did with the Moxley, Jake Hager, empty arena angle. But until we see what the Dark Order's further evolution is, I think that will determine how much AEW has ultimately showed their cards by putting Brody and Mox in this angle so early and without an audience there to take it in. But that's one of those things that we'll have to wait and see. If I know Tony Khan like I do, and I know his mind, and I know the product that he likes to put out, especially after he kind of took more creative control after that really bad Dark Order segment that ended that one episode of Dynamite that had that pretty low rating compared to their average. I don't think he's going to let any any more of the Dark Order storyline fall through the cracks. So I can guarantee you they have something creative planned that's going to keep the title on Mox, but also protect Brody and make sure that he looks strong for the next angle and the next direction that they take that faction.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. They'll keep Brody Lee looking strong, but at the same time, Moxley will still hold the championship. And as you mentioned, I think Nyla Rose will do the same. I think Shida will stay strong, but you just put the title on Nyla Rose back in February. In fact, it was here in Austin. So I don't see them taking that title off of her anytime soon. He is Reece Kelley Graham from the Dallas Morning News. Follow him on Twitter at Reece Kelley G. Before I let you go, is there a match on the card that you are looking forward to besides the ones we talked about that just has that kind of a dark horse match of the night quality to it?
Well, I think the dark horse, I wouldn't call it a dark horse match. I think the match of the night is going to be the 9-way casino ladder match for the future AEW World Championship match. I think it's very smart and very interesting that AEW has booked this match with a couple unique angles, considering its close proximity in time to WWE Money in the Bank. You know, the whole idea of it being a poker chip at the top of the ladder that you grab, going along with the Double or Nothing theme. There's also the idea that there's going to be, that it's going to be like a Royal Rumble wave entrance on a timer, kind of like what they've done with the Casino Battle Royales in the past. And then there's also that mystery 9th entrant, which I've heard a lot of speculation. It can get, given the amount of recent WWE layoffs, it could be somebody who's crossing promotions if their compete clause just happens to accommodate it. It could be somebody that AEW already has in-house. Sean Spears is not on the Double or Nothing card as of our conversation right now. Or, it could be someone completely out of the blue. The casino format for these special stipulation matches, it lends itself to the eventual surprise at the end. So there is that TBD 9th entrant, maybe Brian Cage. There was the report that earlier in this year, after his final match at Impact Hard to Kill, that maybe he was AEW bound. Of course, he had to recover from his bicep tear. But we really haven't had any closure on the Brian Cage front. I'm completely speculating and spitballing right now, but there are multiple interesting wrinkles in that ladder match, and also just some incredible athletes in it. Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, Rey Fenix, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian, Frankie, Luchasaurus will be in there for some size. So I think that match is going to be a good time. I think they're going to book it smartly, and I think it's going to elevate all of the participants overall.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun match, and it'll be fun to find out who number 9 is going to be. I've got my ideas, but I'm gonna keep them, and that way I don't pick wrong. Reece Kelley,
don't get me wrong. I'm not picking Brian Cage.
Right? No, I get
Brian Cage, I'll be
there. You go. You'll look like a genius. Reece Kelley Graham. Follow him on Twitter at Reece Kelley G, and find his stuff in the Dallas Morning News. Reece, thanks so much for giving us your time. All the best to you, and we'll talk again soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm wishing you and yours the best.
Reece is a great young writer for the Dallas Morning News. I got to hang out with him a lot at Impact Hard to Kill back in January. Saw him a little bit before then at a few events, and such a great guy and very knowledgeable. I mean, he looks at wrestling very analytically. Very not a whole lot of he's not a fanboy. I mean, he's a fan of wrestling, but he definitely has some great opinions. And so make sure you follow him on Twitter at Reece Kelley G. He's got some great stuff that he puts on Twitter, and of course, find him in the Dallas Morning News. When we come back from this timeout, When we come back from this timeout, Impact Wrestling star Rohit Raju will join me to talk about all things Impact Wrestling and a little bit about quarantine life. That's coming up next. Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn.
This is the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and you are listening to Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the horn. Stu Myrick flying solo tonight. A lot of great stuff happening with Impact Wrestling. They had the Great Rebellion event a couple weeks ago, and coming out of that, a lot of good storylines and a lot of great talent that are finding their groove and really being really getting the spotlight on Impact Wrestling every week on Access TV. One of those great talents joins us now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. He is formerly one half of the Desi Hit Squad. Now he's calling himself the Desi Hit Man. Rohit Raju. You can follow him on Twitter at Hakeem Zain on Twitter. Rohit, how are you?
I'm doing good. Mother called him son because he shines like one of the mocha skin man himself, Rohit Raju. How are you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing well. Let's start with, in this crazy time, how's the family? How's, relatives? Everybody doing okay right now?
Everyone's doing good. Everyone's trying to stay sane, busy, and creative. Kind of like the rest of the world. We're just trying to find our way and just trying to get through this one day at a time.
Yeah, I understand that completely. What's occupying your time right now? I know you've had some ring time, had some shows here and there, but I know you spend a lot of time at home. So what's occupying your time right now?
Most of the time I'm at home unless I have to run somewhere to grab like groceries or supplies. I just put a new screen door on my patio yesterday, so I ran up there. Got to get something to kill these hornets. But I have a power rack, so that means I can squat, I can deadlift, I can bench. I have a T-bar, or a hex bar, I'm sorry. So I have a few things where I work out every single day. So a small home gym, nothing like an actual gym. But I work out every day. If it's nice out, I take my dogs outside, I grill. I bought an inflatable hot tub in December, so I got that up and running. So when it's nice out, I'm chilling in that. A little day drinking here and there, and at night, I'm usually jumping on my PS4 or my Switch playing some video games with friends.
I was about to say, I think just about every wrestler on the planet is now a gamer, at least every one of them that's under 50. So what is the game of choice right now?
Right now, it's Call of Duty. I'm usually playing with cousin Jake. I have played some Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2 with Zachary Wentz. There's a ninja game that myself and Willie Mack might jump on the Switch, and then there's Predator, which I play with a couple buddies as well. But I've been doing a lot of Call of Duty and Predator at night, so multiplayer shoot 'em ups.
Okay, I can see it now. I know Impact Wrestling, of course, huge on Twitch. I could see it now where there could be the side gig of the Impact Gaming channel on Twitch with a lot of you guys. I think that'd be a huge hit.
I think you're right. There's a lot of diehard gamers. A couple of the guys will bring their PS4s. I don't like taking that stuff outside the house, but a couple of guys will bring their PS4s to the tapings and occupy their time that way. A lot of us will bring our Switches as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of gamers in the Impact locker room.
Yeah, there are. I've seen, a few of them that will, wrestle here on the independent scene here in Texas, and you're right. They'll bring their gaming system and have it with them. So let me ask you this. You mentioned dogs. How many dogs and what breeds?
I have 3 dogs. I have a Brussels Griffin, which looks like face of a pug, body of a beaver. He's a little fatty. Then I have a Chihuahua Jack Russell Dachshund mix, which you can hear them fighting in the background right now in place. And then my newest dog is a Boxer mix. He's about 8 months old, but he's the biggest of the lot. He's a big brute, and I'm trying to keep him under control most of the time. He has so much energy, and he's always getting into trouble, biting and destroying something that he finds. So, but no, I love them. I love my animals more than anything, so yeah. I love hanging out with them and being home with them.
Anybody that is a fur parent, believe me, I understand completely. What you mentioned, do a little day drinking. What's the poison of choice?
Usually Bacardi and diet, but okay. Soko on the rocks or Soko with some diet has been my my usual as of late. So it just depends on what I'm feeling. And then maybe we'll do some shots if we're trying to get tore up, but not as much as I used to when I was a younger man. But I do like to have a good time. Then put some stuff on the grill and just grill out. Anytime the sun's out, I'm trying to be outside grilling. So.
Love grilling. Love to grill. Love to grill and drink. Now, are you a beer guy? Any? Because I know Michigan has a pretty good craft beer scene up there.
They do. I've tried beer. I just couldn't get into it. It's just not the drink of my choice.
I get it.
But even wine, I've tried to do wine as well. And again, it's just not the drink of my choice.
Yeah.
But more polished people that do drink it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a couple breweries here in Austin that will do they'll take one of their amber ales and age it in whiskey barrels, and boy, it is really good. It's boy, that stuff you see if one of the breweries up there has something like that. That might be something you may want to look into.
If I could ever toss back a couple, I would do it with my favorite Texan, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I would definitely, if he said, "Hey kid, here's a beer," I'd be like, "Thanks, Mr. Austin. I'm down with that." So.
Were you surprised when
that day ever happens? That day comes, I will be drinking.
Believe me, I understand. He's from Edna, which is not too far from here in Austin. I was surprised though. The first beer he puts his name to was an IPA. I don't know. Didn't see IPA with him, but it's doing well apparently.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
good. I'm glad.
Was Stone Cold one of the guys that really got you into wrestling, or when you first started, was he one of the ones, or was it somebody else?
Well, as far as wrestling ability, it was. I mean, I've always been enamored. The first wrestlers I saw clips of the Road Warriors wrestling the Koloff in a Russian chain match.
I remember that one well.
Oh my God, what is this? I was just blown away. Because as a kid, I was a huge fan of Mad Max and stuff like that. So the Road Warriors come out with spiked shoulder pads, jacked out of their minds, just killing dudes. I'm like, this is awesome. What is this? What made me actually believe I could get into wrestling was the 90s cruiserweight. They were all guys my size.
Mm-hmm.
You had Benoit, Guerrero, Malenko, Mysterio, Psychosis, all those guys. I'm like, man, I can do this. But I was always into wrestling before that, always trying to imitate wrestlers, cutting promos on people, trying to wrestle in my backyard, wrestling, stuffed animals as a kid. So I always tried to do it, but it was the 90s cruiserweights that really made me believe, like, okay, I can do this. But yeah, guys like Austin Rock, guys that could cut the promos, Flair, Dusty, Savage, those guys that could talk and also put on the great matches, that's who I aspire to be. Because in my eyes, those are the type of guys that transcend professional wrestling. And, they have everything. They have the perfect storm, the package. And that's what I try to model my style after. Being able to perform in the ring, but also talk on the microphone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned the Road Warriors. I'm still, I'm 51 years old. I'll be 52 in August. And believe me, the Road Warriors, to this day, I will still say they're the greatest tag team that ever laced up a pair of boots. And having talked to Animal many times, it's just to watch those matches back in the day. And you mentioned against the Koloffs, the battles they had with them, so incredible. Talking with Rohit Raju from Impact Wrestling here on Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. I was doing some research and I noticed, and I think this may be right. Is this kind of an anniversary week for you? I saw that 3 years ago this week you made your first appearance in Impact Wrestling. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't even. No. It was yeah, I guess you could say, because it was probably on TV at this time.
Right,
it was
taped,
at
right.
the tapings in April, because that's what showed up on my timeline was in April. But yeah, so it must have been on TV this week. So 2017, I was teaming up with a good friend of mine, Idris Abraham, and it was funny. We took on Laredo Kid and Hector Garza Jr., and that was awesome. That was one of my biggest, craziest, most nerve-wracking moments, but it's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it's, Impact Wrestling has done such a fantastic job of putting spotlight on exciting talent, new talent, and of course, especially then, 2017, you're seeing the transition, and you're seeing kind of the transformation, I guess, of Impact Wrestling, and now you look at it now, and just an immense roster of talent, and that includes yourself. One of the things that, and I saw on this week's Impact about how you were talking about, of course you were part of Dizzy Hit Squad, but now you're venturing out on your own as a singles wrestler. Does that change anything as far as your preparation, as far as how much of your character changes, how much of your preparation changes going into a singles competition?
Well, the character change now is actually kind of more me, because it's all my frustrations, my bitterness, and my anger towards, I've always felt like I was a very talented individual. I've always felt like I could do more in the company and just never had that opportunity. Now I'm having that opportunity. So now it's me kind of like lashing out with that chip on my shoulder, like saying, hey, I've been here this long. I have yet to have a T-shirt. The Hit Squad's yet to have a T-shirt. I know how good I am, but I yet to have that recognition, and never had a chance to talk on my own. So now it veers away from like Rohit, the black sheep of the Daisy Hit Squad, who was always getting slapped by Gama and joking around, and was kind of like that kid poking the stick at the big dog and then running behind the back of like Shira. You know what I mean? That's gone. Now it's me being focused. So the mentality, it's actually more, I'm even more driven, because now they're giving me a ball to run with. And now it's like, okay, cool. Now I get to show them that I can be more than what they or what they thought of me. Because I remember I watched Don Callis. I listened to him, and I don't want to say he kind of buried me, but he was like, well, he puts on good matches, but he's never over and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool, okay, well, I take it as a challenge. Now the ball's in my court. Now it's not me with a Hit Squad or something like that where I have to mesh with somebody. Now it's me. So now I get a chance to blow up and do what I do. And it's funny, the feedback that I've been getting from not only wrestlers but fans as well, it's getting over. So, I honestly, I look at that. I know Don's just being Don, and he's telling it how he sees it. But now I want to take that and I want to shove that in his face, Like, I can do what you don't think I can do, and I will. And preparation, no, I'm always nervous no matter what, because I want to perform so well out there, and I want to put on a good show, and I want to show people how good I am. So that's all the same. When it gets closer to go time, I kind of veer off by myself and just stay inside my own head and just mentally prepare for the match.
Right. Yeah. And this past week, you had an outstanding match with Trey Miguel. And I've known Trey for quite some time. A fantastic match. I know you you came up a little short, but what a great match with you two in that first number one contenders tournament. A couple things before we let you go. I know you want to be the world champion, because that's the goal of every wrestler, but other goals in Impact Wrestling that you may have.
Breakout star. I definitely want to be X Division champion. I would love to get some tag titles with the Hit Squad at some point, or even if I could get my homie Karam in there, one half of the Hustle and the Muscle, I would like that too. But I want to be somebody. I don't want to be, right now I have this think on me that Rohit is a low-level guy. He's a job guy. All he's good for is just to make others look good and put them over. I want to get away from that. And I am trying my damnedest to get away from that now that they're giving me the microphone. I have singles matches, like you said, and I appreciate the feedback on that. I saw a lot of good feedback about that match. I can do that, and I need people to see that and realize that, and this is my chance to do it. So I actually want to be somebody at Impact. I don't want to be just another guy or, this guy's the Indian talent. No, I actually want to be a main person and have a seat at the main table on the Impact roster, and that's what I'm working towards.
Absolutely, and I have no doubt that you're going to accomplish that. Before I let you go, I want you to help me solve what has become the biggest mystery in Impact Wrestling. It has been all over social media, so maybe you can help me out with this. Is AC Romero really suicide?
Hands down. I mean, the evidence is stone cold, if I may say. It's proof. Like, The secret's out, AC. There's nothing he can do now. He might as well not even wear the mask. It's over. We all know it's him. And the internet doesn't lie, so there you go.
The internet doesn't lie. He is Rohit Raju. Follow him on Twitter at Hakeem Zane. Catch him Tuesday nights on Access TV on Impact Wrestling. Rohit, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to see great things out of you in the weeks and months to come. All the best. Stay safe, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Fun conversation with Rohit Raju, and I'm looking forward to seeing big things from him in Impact Wrestling, and Impact Wrestling definitely on the rise. Make sure you catch them Tuesday nights on Access TV. When we come back from this timeout, I've got a couple other nuggets to share with you before we get out of here. You're listening to Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn.
Hey, it's Tony Schiavone, and you're listening to Sports Guys Talking Wrestling.
Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn. Stu Myrick flying solo here. A couple quick things. First of all, our thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of Shad Gaspard, one half of Crime Time, the legendary WWE tag team. Shad and his son were walking on a California beach over the weekend. A riptide unfortunately carried them out to sea. Shad's son was able to be saved. However, Shad went missing. They recovered Shad's body this morning, not too far from where he was taken out to sea. Just a heart-wrenching story. So, again, our thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. I only had a chance to meet him a couple times, but every time he was a wonderful individual, always willing to chat, just to kind of hang out. Last time I saw them, they were at VIP Wrestling. I think they were the VIP Tag Team Champions, and they had a match, and I was privileged enough to do commentary with my good friend Nigel Rabbit on that match. So, again, just heartbreaking to hear about Shad Gaspard, and just sad. Also, a wrestling journalist named Larry Zaka from 411 Mania, very well respected. He passed away on Monday. So again, our thoughts and prayers to his family and friends, everybody at 411 Mania. Again, as I said, very well respected in the wrestling media community. His show reviews were must read online. So again, another loss in the wrestling community. Dark Side of the Ring finished up their season 2 with the story about the tragedy of Owen Hart, his fall at the WWF Over the Edge pay-per-view in '99 in Kansas City, Missouri. Just an incredible story that they told, and at the same time, just wrench your gut hearing his wife Martha, his kids talk about the memories of their dad. Of course, hearing the stories from the likes of Chris Jericho and Jim Ross. Especially Jim Ross, because he was sitting there doing commentary with Jerry the King Lawler and saw him fall, and just an incredible story, and just heartbreaking at the same time. So, again, as I said, that was the season 2 finale. Let's hope there's a season 3. Evan Husney, Jason Eisner done such a fantastic job with this show, and I know a lot of people on social media have already sent their ideas for season 3. So let's hope Vice TV does decide to do a season 3 for Dark Side of the Ring. I know it'll be a fantastic season, just like season 1, season 2 were as well. The WWE docuseries, The Last Ride with The Undertaker, has been on. They had the first 2 episodes of a 5-part series. The second episode was this Sunday, talking about his redemption, coming back from the match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, when everybody thought that was his retirement match, and talking about his having his hip surgery and get back in the ring again, and working towards WrestleMania 34 when he was going to face John Cena. And what a great series this has been. Again, it's still surreal to see Mark Calloway, not The Undertaker, see him as Mark Calloway and hear him talk as Mark Calloway. For instance, talking about when WWE sent him a ring, and he set it up at a vacated jet ski repair shop out in Southwest Austin where, he lives, and doing some training, and he had all these posters, and just watching that. Looking forward to the next 3 chapters. Chapter 3 will air this Sunday on the WWE Network. The Last Dance, the ESPN documentary on the Chicago Bulls going for their 6th NBA title, the second of the three-peats, 97-98 series. They wrapped up this past Sunday, and they, sure enough, touched on after Game 3 of the NBA Finals, when the Bulls had beaten the Utah Jazz. Dennis Rodman, instead of going to practice, he skips out, heads to Auburn Hills, Michigan, to be on WCW Monday Nitro because he's part of the NWO. So he showed up there with Hulk Hogan, and they're building towards the Bash at the Beach match with Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. So it was interesting to see that moment in wrestling history from the eyes of the basketball world. One final nugget before we go. Drew Gulak, his WWE contract has expired. So he is, as of right now, a free agent and can sign with anybody immediately because the contract expired, so there's no non-compete clause. So we'll see if Drew Gulak finds a way to re-sign with WWE, or does he show up somewhere else. That'll do it for this week's Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. You can follow Justin the Smash Simmons on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at The Smash Simmons. He'll be back with us next week. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Stu Myrick. That's STEWMYRICK. You can follow the show on Twitter at SGTWATX. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. We're proud to be the official broadcast partner of the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we're proud to be part of the great lineup you hear every day on the flagship station for the Texas Longhorns. We are the Horn. Catch us Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Central on the Horn, or you can catch us anytime by going to hornfm.com and click on the On-Air tab, or by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast platform. My thanks to Reece Kelley Graham from the Dallas Morning News for joining me, and my thanks to you for giving us a little bit of your time tonight. One of these days, I will see you at the matches.
Goodbye and good night. Bang!